Welcome to the team huddle today. And sorry, short notice. I think things have been crazy with thinking we're having a BOGO coming up. I don't know about you, but we got lots of stuff going on. But in the middle of this, I wanted to talk about, let's see what's doing. Hey, Heather. Something that's really important to learn. And if you get this now, you'll be smarter than 95% of the world. And I'm not kidding about that. So I have been getting my MBA. I've been around some really smart people, some really amazing, incredible people who have done great things. And they're going back to school, getting their MBAs, but the philosophies that are being taught in schools today, including college universities, is not what is going to be needed in order to create financial freedom for yourself. And so that's what I want to talk about, because honestly, if you catch this concept and apply the principles that are taught, you will create that financial freedom. And doterra is a great vehicle to do that. It's not the only vehicle to do that, but do want to talk about some reasons why it's so great for most people. Let me share my screen. I think, how many of you have read, you can just raise your hand if you've read any of like the Rich Dad, Poor Dad books? Oh, sort of. Okay, good. I would highly recommend Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And there's a game, it's called Cash Flow Quadrant. If you don't have that game, you want to get it and play it with your kids. It's one of the, as your kids are getting into those, I think probably my 10-year-old or so in upper place. Some of you may not be there, but it has been invaluable for helping them to learn some of these principles in a fun way. But it's for adults too. So that was the first thing that he made, was this game, Cash Flow Quadrant, or the Cash Flow game. And then he wrote this book, and then he's written several others, and he has a company called the Rich Dad, Poor Dad Company or something like that. Anyway, so let me show you this. Let me share my screen to help you to understand what I'm talking about. Now, this is going to be overwhelming. Hope y'all can see that. But I want to explain what this is. And if you can get this and understand this, and then be able to explain it to your spouse, to your kids, honestly, you will be smarter than 95% of the world. So this is the quadrant right here. You have the E, B, S, I. On this left side, so the E stands for employee, and the S stands for self-employed. So most people, and this is where we're taught in schools what to do. We're taught, get a good education, get a job. Like, that's what we tell our kids, right? Most of us said, get a good education, go get a job. And that's our phrase. And I promise you, this does not create financial freedom. It does not create time freedom. It does not help you to be the best person that you are, although 95% of people are on this side. So most of you know and understand the downfalls of employment, being employed by someone else. That means that somebody else is in control of your time. You are at risk of losing your job. You're building someone else's dream. You're have only so much time off. We all know that, right? But that's just in our heads. That's just normal. And that's just the good thing to do. That's what we're taught over and over in schools. That's about the extent of our financial education in schools. And that is including in these MBA programs, in these PhD programs. This is the concepts that are being taught. And then a step up from that is that you could become a specialist. Like, you could become really good at what you do, and you could become self-employed. For instance, you might be an awesome teacher. So instead of working for the school system, you teach from home. I know, Elise did that, right? She had her preschool. She was self-employed. Basically, you own your own job now. You don't have time freedom, but you own your own job. And so that is kind of a step up. Even doctors, lawyers, accountants, even the best accountants in the world are specialists who own their own job, but they are still on this left-hand side of the quadrant. And let me tell you, you can see the things here that it lists. You're trading your time for money. Money grows linearly. So that means for every dollar you work, you get paid. If you don't work that hour, you don't get paid on salary. Basically, you work your time that week. If you don't show up, you don't get paid. A doctor doesn't show up, doesn't get paid. And so we all know those concepts, and that's, part of the appeal of doTERRA. What happens when you're disabled? There's a lot of people who experience that get laid from their job, get fired, economy changes, whatever, and then pack your money into a 401k, save for your retirement in that way. And if you guys have looked at, if you have a 401k, if you have some kind of savings that's been tied to the stock market, you've seen that is not stable. That is not what we're taught is, it's not true in the fact that just sticking your money in there, leaving it to grow is not going to create the income that you will need to be able to retire without having a job. And if you look also at these other things, so 5% of the wealth of the world comes from this, being an employee or being self-employed. 95% of the wealth is with the B&I group. These are people who are business owners, not self-employed, but they own a business. There's systems that are in place. They employ people or they use systems to do things. So for instance, you might own a McDonald's, right? And here I am, I own the McDonald's and I'm working in it and I've got to make sure there's employees and all this stuff. But as a business owner, you might be McDonald's Corporation that is franchising out all these business owners, these self-employed people in a sense. doTERRA helps you to move from this side of the quadrant over to the right side of the quadrant, and start creating that income as a business owner because of the systems that are in place. And I want to talk about that in just a minute, but then also that helps you to move into a place where you can become an investor. And an investor is somebody that leverages money. So for instance, you might buy real estate and you're creating income from rentals or something. And so you don't have to be there. You don't have to be like full-time on that job. Your money is working for you. So this is really where 95% of the wealth is with people who learn how to do this. And 95% of the population is over in this other quadrant because that's what we're taught. That's what we're taught is like the good way of living. For most people in a traditional home, like a spouse is out of the home for how many hours a week? You see them at work more than you see them at home. And we're taught that that's like the good thing to do. It doesn't have to be that way. If you understand this, like this is really the basics of the principle that will get you to change your financial situation. If you truly understand this, and what you're working for with doTERRA is creating that passive or residual income. And it is completely worth it. Like I've experienced that being over on the left-hand side, growing up with it, that was the traditional way. And now being over on the other side where my time is my time. And the income, like I've been going to school and the income is still going in and I can choose what I'm doing with that time. So that really does give us freedom. The other thing that I hope that you will understand is that the rich do keep getting richer and this other side of the quadrant, you just keep getting poorer. And the reason why is taxes. One of the big reasons why is taxes. Employees and the self-employed are taxed more than anyone else. We're talking the middle class. So we have like the poor that aren't working and they're getting subsidized in all these ways. We're talking about people who are working are paying the most taxes. And the reason why is because of how the tax system is set up. And even what you're in Canada or in the United States, they really do tax you according to how they want you to perform, or they give you incentives to act in a certain way. So they give tax incentives, tax breaks to people who own businesses and who invest. Why? Because it grows the economy. Being an employee does not grow the economy. You do your little do, and that's it. When you own businesses, when you are investing, you are growing the economy. So the government will give you an incentive to do that. And if we realize that, that is why, if you look at the elections from Barack Obama and, what's his name? Mormon guy, come on, from not the election before, Mitt Romney. Yeah, mute everyone. Okay, so Mitt Romney, he releases taxes, right? And he made like millions and millions of dollars. he paid around 14% in taxes. Like, here's this millionaire, he's paying 14% in taxes. And some claim that's one of the reasons why he lost the election, because they thought, he should be paying more taxes. Barack Obama, in this quadrant over here, his philosophies are over here. You get a job, you work either for government or whatever, you get a job. He was paying 30% in taxes. You can make the same amount of money, but depending on which quadrant you're in, you will keep more of your money. And what do business owners and investors do? They put more money back into the economy. What are we taught to do over here? We do our job, we save a little bit, we spend a lot, and that's what we do, but we're not necessarily growing the economy. So that is why employees, people who are employed, pay the most taxes, 40%. If you're self-employed, if you're a doctor or a lawyer, you have your own little business, you will pay upwards of 60% tax when you're talking about like the sales tax and the self-employment taxes and the Medicare and all that stuff that you have to pay. And as a self-employed person, you're not getting that funded 401k with someone else. You're not getting, like some matching. You're not getting insurance. You're not getting all those benefits. You're paying them. So although some people think, oh, that's great, I'm going to be self-employed, it's actually the worst place to be unless it's working you over to this other side. Now, these concepts, they may seem like, that's it? Like, that's really it. Most of the world does not know that this exists, that instead of complaining about not having money, they have to realize that the philosophies that they bought into aren't going to get them anywhere. They're just going to keep working for money. And they're going to be disappointed that when they're working at Walmart, when they're retired. Like, that is just how it is. In the United States, Social Security is bankrupt. If you've looked at the graph, like, it is underwater. So for most of us, like my age, I'm not even considering ever collecting on Social Security, and it's minuscule anyway. And some of you are so far away from it, you're not thinking anything about it. But I promise you, it will creep up on you. And the sooner you can realize that this is worth working for, this is worth sacrificing time and energy, and even financially investing into your business, is so worth it to get out of that rat race. And so that game that I talked about, the cash flow game, it really teaches you how to get out of the rat race, which most of us are in. And what's really cool is that once you see that, you can help others to see that and realize, like, a lot of your financial pain issues are coming from having this belief of this is how it works, as being over as an employee or self-employed. And it's really not that ground. So for those who have not gotten this book from doTERRA, it is phenomenal. It works. Like, we've applied these principles even before we ever got the book. We were living the principles that are in this book, and we have paid off 2 houses now at this point because of the principles that are in here. Not because we're so fantastic, not because like we're lucky or anything like that. We have just applied these principles, and we've worked really hard, and we put our faith in God that that's what he wanted us to do. So my last thing that I wanted to share with that before, if anybody has questions. Oh, and the taxes. Tax breaks are huge with these. So 20% tax generally around for business owners. That's probably about what I pay. But if you can get into this investor quadrant, you can pay nearly 0 in taxes. Because we have businesses, I would recommend that you start, if you haven't already, that you are tracking all of your expenses. And right now is the best time to do it. Not coming around next year when tax season is and you're like, oh, dang, like, I didn't write that down, I didn't track that. You want to be tracking and making sure you have a designated space. Even if you're in an apartment, have a designated space that's for business. You can have some great write-offs, especially if you have a mortgage, with like the bills and stuff that come in through that, your phone line, your travel, your car. There's just so many different things. And anywhere you go now, like any vacation you have can become a business expense. These people over here that are employees, they don't have any of these types of tax breaks. They go on a vacation, that just is gone. You go on a vacation, you make it a business expense because you're sharing oils, or if you have some other thing, you can write that off. We do, so here's one, is that you can have your meals, if it's for business, and if it's during business or after business, this would count. So for instance, because I pay my kids to do stuff in doTERRA, this is another thing that you could do, that if you have those meals catered in, or if you bring it into your house, or you're bringing it to someone versus we're going to, the restaurant to eat, that the whole amount can be a write-off. And so we can be having family dinner that we've brought in the food, we're having family dinner, we're talking about business and how he's going to help with these samples and she's going to do this. That is a write-off. You're going to buy the food anyway, right? You're going to feed your family anyway. So that type of write-off is not paid, that you can't do that as an employee, right? So now part of your grocery bills are tax deductible. And some of you may not like, well, my taxes aren't that much anyway because I don't make that much. Well, I promise you, if you are thinking, being over on this right side, your income will grow and you will have those tax advantages that 95% of the world doesn't have. And it's not that they're not available to them, they just aren't aware that they could be doing that. Because I really like keeping the money that I make and being able to choose where that goes versus the government taking a large chunk of my money and them choosing where it goes. So it's just not rocket science. You don't have to be that smart to do this, but you do have to understand this principle. My one last thing that I wanted to share with you in order to, I just see so many people that get excited and they go and then things come up and they just back off or quit or take a break. When you are in the mindset of a business owner, you don't take breaks. Like if you had bought this store and now it's open and it's running, like just because you don't feel well doesn't mean that you don't show up. Like that's just, your mindset has got to be such that I show up in my business every day. And sometimes that's going to be more time than other times, but every day your mind should be in your business and being able to plan that if you want to create that residual income. Now, 4 things that I think will really help, and I hope that you all write these down. Kind of the process in creating that, really anything, but it will help with your doTERRA business. The first is educating your mind, really understanding these things. We're always talking about personal progress. We're talking about, the books that we read, getting better skills, changing our mindset. That is educating our mind. Like that is the first step. And we're going to always be doing that. But as we're educating our mind, we need to be listening to what I call the spirit. We need to be listening to those promptings that we get, those thoughts that we get, those impressions and feelings that we get. Those are specifically for us and guidance for us in our business. And I believe God will guide us along in the things that we're doing if we will listen. So as we're educating our mind, we're also listening. The third one is that we are making a promise, or a covenant is something that we make, and there's like a two-way promise. So if I, for instance, said to Elise, I promise I'm going to do this, and then if I do that, she's promising back to do that. When I do this with God, because when I get those promptings or those feelings like this is what I should do, or I should reach out to this person, I will make a promise to God, like, okay, I'm going to do this, and I know that he's going to help me in that. And so we make those promises, we make those commitments is the third thing. And then the fourth thing is that we do it. And as we do that process, our confidence in ourselves goes up. We get better. Our skills get better. Our mindset grows better. We have more confidence in ourselves because we keep our commitments. That was one of the greatest things about building your self-esteem, is keeping personal commitments. And so when you follow that process, when you educate yourself, when you listen, when you make those commitments and then you keep them, that is just the door that gets us into this other quadrant right here. And yes, we're going to experience failures, but that's a learning process as we're going along, but we're just continually doing that same process. Okay, I see that I wasn't very good at inviting someone, so now I'm going back to the learning. What did I learn from that experience? How can I get better? I'm listening to the promptings that I'm getting about, wait, maybe it didn't work that well because of this, or maybe you have a thought to talk to someone about this, get some help from someone, or read a certain book. I'm listening to those things and I'm committing to doing those things that are required to get better at inviting, and then I do it. And that's just the process over and over again. It's pretty simple, just like this quadrant. And I hope that you'll understand these things and that you'll take the time to educate yourself on these financial principles. most of the stuff we learn in school is garbage. It just doesn't work. It gets you a job. And so if you want to do things a different way, I would encourage you. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is an excellent book to read. These financial principles from doTERRA is awesome. And then, keeping your commitments as you make them. I just want you guys to be successful, and I want you to understand that these are all principle-based, so they can be applied to anyone in any situation. It doesn't just work for me. It works for everyone, because that's truly how things work and grow. So any comments, thoughts, experiences, back me up if you have something with this.
I'll just say, Stacy, we've gone through that whole cycle. We did the job thing. My husband was a cop. I was a school teacher. We did the 9-to-5 job thing. We decided to own a business. We bought a tire store. It was an experience. We learned a lot. But having a business that we could shift to be a business owner, I didn't realize the difference. When we bought that tire store, I thought I was a business owner. But I wasn't. I was self-employed, because the way that business was structured, we always needed to be there. And being able to move to that business owner and have systems in place and just learn that systems are out there is super awesome. And I grew up the same way. My dad's a software programmer. He went to work at 9 in the morning. He came home at 5 at night. He had Saturday and Sunday off. I thought that was the American dream. Love my dad, but it's not. There's so much more out there. So I just second what you said, Stace, because if you'll get that and really work towards that, don't have the goal be to retire from your job at 60 instead of 65. Have your goal to be a business owner and find that time and financial freedom at 45, 40, 50, whatever it is. So.
Well, what's funny about that is because I talk to people now and people who are in the concept of, I'm going to retire at 65. So that's where my mom is. She's like 65 and everyone's asking, so are you going to retire? I'm thinking, what does that mean? Because for us in doTERRA, like once you get to the place where the income's coming in, like retire, like what would I do? Like, that sounds really boring, right? But because right now, like life is how it should be. Even when I'm 65, 70, 80, it doesn't matter. Like I'm going to be doing good stuff and having the income, and I'm not working for money. My money is working for me. My money is there for me to do the things that God wants me to do, not me there to work for money. Like that's just, it's shifting that from retirement. Oh, let's forget it. Yeah, work your whole life. Do it with something you love and that you feel good about.
Yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts, questions, comments? I just want to, if you don't, just shift into, if anyone has questions about potential BOGOs coming up on Monday or anything else.
Stacy.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to say, like, I love what you just said, and I wrote it down, and I'm gonna, it's making me emotional. But I always, when I first started the doTERRA business, I had it stuck in my head. I'm like, no, I don't want to achieve all these rank goals just for the money. And I was stuck in that mindset that I had to work for this money, for this money, for this money. And I'm like, that's not what I want to do this for. That's not my purpose in that. And you just kind of gave me my aha moment, even though I've been striving to kind of wrap my brain around it. But when you just said it, it just really clicked. Your money is working for you so that you can do what God has called you to do. I love that. I just wanted to say I love that. Thank you.
Well, and I hope that you will teach more people that that's how life can be and should be. It's one thing to learn now, like to fish, right? But we in doTERRA, we don't just teach people to fish. We don't give people fish for sure. And we don't just teach people to fish. We teach other people how to teach people how to fish. Does that make sense? Like this has got to be something that's going to be passed along, not just with our families, but others that we come in contact with. And even though you'll educate them on those 4 quadrants and teach them that, there's a different way, maybe a better way. There will still be people who choose, like, this is safe, this is secure. They'll be in that mindset and it's okay. But you will come across people that you will change their lives forever. And that's really what we're looking to do. And it's not about the money. Yeah, the money comes, like you're saying, just to provide so that we can do more. And And I love that you're all part of this awesome team. So
Thank you.
So any BOGOs or anything we can help with before the madness begins?
Block out your time, ladies. Warn your family. Give your husband a heads up.
Yeah.
What would you guess? I would say, Stacey, we're looking at 2-ish hours a day just on BOGOs.
You'll probably have during the day promoting, and then you're placing your orders at night.
But watch, if things are selling out, get
orders in as you're going along, right?
Every time I had 5 orders, I was ordering because
smart move.
Yeah. So we just think about that.
Yeah. And if there's any problems like with ordering, reach out to if you're silver, reach out to your silver above. Hold on just a second. Reach out to your account manager that day, because oftentimes they can fix it the next day, but if you don't reach out, then they won't fix it. And if you're not silver or above, reach out to your nearest upline silver or above. Say, hey, I'm having a problem with this BOGO. I just won't go get in. That they can just make a note of it. Will you just shut the door just for a second? No, just for a second. Not right now. Not right now. No. How many times do you have to say no before you get it? No. They can't? No. What was I saying? Yeah, so that's a great point on the BOGOs.
And know what your goals are, right? Let your upline know what your goal is. Back to Stacey's being committed to yourself and being accountable. Have a goal for this week. It's got to be worth something. You don't just want it to be, I'm going to do BOGOs. That's not a goal. Set your goal of exactly what you're going to do so that you're really focused on why you are spending giant amounts of time on Facebook this week.
Hey, well, I'm going to have to go. Here goes crazy. Yeah, and it could be even just trying to get your 50 power free. It could be your 250 power free, and you're having teams of people ordering to get your powers free. Easy as that. Can you take that out, please? We're on right here. I don't think they can hear me. So, any questions or comments as we're going along, just be posting in your Facebook group or texting your upline, and it's gonna be awesome. There are so many people I've heard said that they doubled their volume in 1 week. Doubled their volume in 1 week. So who knows what will happen.
Yeah. I last BOGO, Megan Hamburg, went from 11,000 volume to almost 20. Yeah. So yeah, totally doubled. And didn't just double 3,000, doubled a huge amount, blew us both away. Yeah.
That's so exciting.
But it was good, and it'll totally happen. So
awesome.
Set your goals. Okay.
Okay. Excited to see where everyone plans. Okay. Have a great weekend.
See you later.